This is a topic that I don't really explore anymore, in the sense of I don't really go to these moods, to these specific scenarios where I'm actually in the mood to play this. But with this idea, I was just kind of, just kind of brainstorming what I wanted to make or, wanted to introduce you to, because I've done some metal bands, I've done some conceptual things, some listings, some hate, some negative videos. So I figured, what haven't I done before? And I think that discussing my favorite mood albums would be, you know, the next step, because I think that recommending vinyl is generally a positive vibe, I would say. Which, I hope that that was a valuable video to check out, if you did check that out. These, on the other hand, are a bit more personal to me. The vinyl one was more like, these are general great albums with a great vibe. But these are albums that I only specifically really listen to when I'm in a kind of dour mood. Not necessarily depressing, but just a lot of emotion. Figured this is not a best of list or something. This is just the albums where I feel the most, where I have the most emotions, where I'm like, oh, that really like hits a string with me, or however that saying goes. So the criteria for the list is mainly that these albums have to have a sort of impact with me, like most of my favorite albums would. But actually, some albums that I would consider a favorite did not make the list. But some albums are a bit more emotional, did. So it's kind of difficult to explain that to, the criteria of what really makes it. It's more so in the sense of, if it's actually emotional and if it actually hits me, then it has a good chance to actually make the list, because, I didn't want to call this video top 10 emotional albums, because the short word for emotional is emo. And I don't really think there's an emo album on there, I don't. There's no American Football or Silver Sun, or what's the name? That band is on there though, but American Football and Sunny Day Real Estate, those like Midwest emo bands. Also Snowing. I do like that stuff, but it's not even that, I would say, emotional. Personally, I just think it's a bit whiny, to me at least. That's just how I see emo. So I'm not a huge on that, but I do like an emotional album. So when I do explain the list, you'll get what I'm saying. So yeah, let's just start out with the honorable mentions, like I usually do. And the first one that I wanted to mention, that is a good example of what I mean with, great moody albums that did miss the list, because I'm like, yeah, they have a great mood, but they don't have a lot of emotion. And the perfect example of that is Oceanic by ISIS, which is, I think, one of the greatest albums ever. Like, just a god sent metal album, just the perfect sludge, in my opinion. It didn't actually make the list because there's a lot of mood, there's a lot of atmosphere on this record, and I really love that vibe that ISIS provides, especially with their album Oceanic. I think they hit their stride on this album, but there's not a lot of emotion. It's mainly just you know like literally oceanic sound. So it's good advertisement for the album, but because it sounds so almost pale and kind of empty in a way, that there's not a lot of emotion to grab onto. It literally just sounds like an album where you're drowning in the ocean. That's how this whole album sounds. So the mood, the atmosphere is amazing. Like there's no other album that sounds like this. But at the same time, there's not a lot of emotion on it. So it didn't make the list, but I did wanted to mention it because the mood is sublime. But yeah, that's my criteria for the list. Great mood, but not a lot of emotion, I would say. So missed out on the actual list. The second one that I want to mention is Brighter Later. Again, another Nick Drake album. I think on my last video, the vinyl one, he's also in my honorable mentions. I don't want to do Nick Drake dirty. He's great, but at the same time, this one has a lot of emotion, great lyrics, just great musicianship by Nick Drake. I would say this is his best produced one, arguably my personal favorite, because the songs are just great. The songwriting, like I said, great. The whole production just has this warm, housey feel, like you're at like a campfire or like sitting, at a how do you call that? Like not like your house is on fire, but like you're sitting at the fire. I'm not sure how that's called, but my main language isn't English, like you can hear. But yeah, it's like you're sitting by the fire and you're just like really warm, fuzzy, just comfy, just a great mood. So I love that vibe that Brighter Later has. But at the same time, I do think that the songs are a bit inconsistent because I do think I did mention that in the last video. At the Jam of a City Clock is just amazing, god tier song. Northern Sky, arguably the greatest folk song ever written. Definitely the greatest one I've ever heard personally. Just a godsend song, great emotion. But the problem is that not all the songs are on those levels. Like those two songs are amazing. There are other songs like Poor Boy where I'm kind of like, it kind of sounds like an outtake personally. So there was a bit of an inconsistent one, but there are some really great songs on this one. So I definitely wanted to mention it. Then we get another one that I was really close to actually putting on, but for diversity's sake, I took it off because it sounded a bit too similar to other bands that I already have on. That is The Human Equation by Ariel. This is just sublime, conceptual, progressive rock music. Basically, I think his name is Arjen Lucassen. He's actually from the Netherlands. He's a fellow neighbor of mine. He's not my actual neighbor, but neighbor of the States. So another Dutchman. I'm saying that because I'm Dutch, if you couldn't tell. But yeah, he is my favorite Dutch musician because I just love his conceptual nature. I love how just out there he is. He's just really experimental and just he really lays it on. He like tells this conceptual nature of a boy that is like or like a man that's lost in the world and he's like trying to find purpose, trying to go through all the human emotions. That's why it's called Human Equation. So you go to like love, desire, loser, confrontation, which is my personal favorite, where the whole thing just comes down. You have these like great metal singers like James LeBrie and Michael Eckerfeld, probably obviously my favorite one if I haven't glazed Opeth enough on this channel. More on that later, but yeah, just great singers. Just Arion as well. Just I think he sings on this album. Pretty great stuff. All the singers are pretty great. I think Devin Townsend is on there as well. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, definitely a great cast here. The conceptual nature, it's very emotional, it's very moody, but it's very catchy as well. It's not on the actual list because I usually just listen to the whole thing and I'm like, oh, Usually when I listen to it, I want to like more headbang to it as opposed to actually like indulge in the mood. So that's probably why it's not on the actual list, because I get more like metal moments out of it than actual emotional, you know, moods from it. But it works for both ways. But it didn't make the list because I want the more emotional side. I wanted to lean heavier into that for this particular list. But for personal enjoyment, I think it's perfect. Like with Oceanic, like more moody, sometimes emotional. That's probably my vibe. But for this list, it didn't make it. So honorable mention to, in my opinion, probably the best prog rock album, in my opinion, or my personal favorite at least. So there you go. And the fourth one, another just amazing one, is I've mentioned this one before, Efflores in the Porkpantry review. Efflores by Ocean Size. Kind of a similar one to Oceanic, where I just really love the mood, I love the vibe, but it doesn't have. Well, that's not true necessarily. It does have emotion. There's definitely emotional moments on this record, but it's not emotional enough to make the list. But yeah, with songs like Long Forgotten and Women Who Love Drugs Who Love Men or some shit, or opposite. I always get the men and women shits. I always twist those up, but those two particular songs are just really great moody pieces that just spiral out eventually. And it just has a lot of like bursting energy of mood, flavor, and emotion. So I just really love the variation in their styles. But it's a lot of mood, but not enough emotion, I would say, to really throw it on there. But for my personal enjoyment, it is pretty much perfect. So I did wanted to mention it, but there you go. The last honorable mention goes to Violator by Depeche Mode. This was actually a last minute takeoff because it was actually on the list, but I took it off for something else because I was like, oh, I also know this album, and yeah, that particular album made it to number 2. So there's like a last minute addition to this list that made it to number 2. So yeah, that was a pretty big one to me. Which I don't listen to that album a lot, but there are a lot of emotions on it. So I was like, yeah, I have to throw that on there. That was pretty big. But yeah, Violator missed the cut because I'm like, yeah, it is a moody record. It does have great atmosphere. There are some pretty emotional songs on it, like Waiting for the Night and obviously Enjoy the Silence, which is more so just sketchy and moody than actually emotional. There are definitely emotional moments on it, but yeah, it definitely leans more that atmospheric kind of way, but it is still very catchy. So I was like, yeah, I have to mention that one. But didn't make it because it does linger more in that moody atmosphere than it is actually invoking a lot of emotion, at least out of me. So that is just how I think. But yeah, that's last honorable mention. Violator by Depeche Mode. So let's get into the actual top 10. Number 10, which I've praised this artist before. I think on this channel, maybe on my other channel. I'm not sure. My hacked channel that I mentioned here and there. Have I mentioned this artist before? I don't think on this channel. But anyway, she's great. She's definitely an influence, or she's definitely influenced, I think, by the greats like Kate Bush. And that is, of course, Julia Holter with her album Loud City Song. And you could debate that Have You in My Wilderness is a more emotional album. But I like this one better because it does really combine those like moody swings that she has. I got a great string sections. There are some like jazzy moments on there. It also sounds a bit like Julie Cruz inspired, that smoky late night kind of vibe. So you have that really silky smooth sound, like maybe even Sade, but that might lean more into soul. So let's just say Julie Cruz for that matter. So it definitely has that like really late, that smoky kind of jazz pop sound, which it's great for like late night, like sleepy time music. So it definitely has that vibe, which I love. And I also think it's emotional because Julia Holter just has a lot of passion and emotion behind her voice. Like she sings with a lot of grit and a lot of passion. It sounds like you can definitely hear that she's kind of like whispering in the night, or that's kind of metaphorically how it sounds. But it's also very pretty and elegant. So because of those kind of qualities in her voice, I also get kind of an emotional reaction out of that. It's not like overwhelmingly, hence why she's only number 10, but I do think that she brings great mood, atmosphere, and emotion to the table. So I was like, yeah, I do have to throw her on there because she's probably like, I would say the most accessible artist on this list. But maybe don't start out with this one because it is definitely a bit more moody and ambient, So definitely listen to this when you're like, for sleep time music. I think it's great for that, which I'm about to do after this video. So perfect. But yeah, I did want to start out with this one because I think that's Julia Holter's modern classic. Aviary, have you in my wilderness, Loud City song. Like she has banger after banger. I love most of her discography, and I think this is her crowning jewel. Yet, you could argue Aviary is her masterpiece. That's the great thing about Julia Holter. Like fans can't decide. That's how you know she's a great artist because she already has multiple classics. So hope she makes more. Number 9, which is definitely an artist that has outlived that classic status, or not necessarily outlived, but definitely, you know, I do think that she has passed her prime. I should would say, yeah. I think that the beginning, the first half of the list is like all females because I don't know. That's a coincidence, I suppose. Emotion, who knows? But yeah, number 9 is another one similar to Julia Holter. I would say that Julia Holter might have been inspired by this artist, like same thing with Kate Bush, which is of course Björk. I chose her album Vespertine because you could argue that this is the most emotional album of this list, but with Björk, it's always a bit difficult to really put a finger on what makes a certain song great because she just has a kind of distinct sound, which is sometimes difficult to wrap your head around because you're like, oh, it does sound good, but you're like, oh, I did not expect that voice. She has a very attention grabbing voice. With Julia Holter, I can just throw it on and just have a kind of loungy, vibey, just good vibe to that. Which has a certain quality to that as well. But with Björk, it's really like she demands your attention. So it's almost difficult to look away, like a car crash or something. Not that this is a disaster, but maybe the album after that. But Majula. But the Vespertine is elegant. It's pretty. It's very mystical and kind of wintry sounding. So it kind of has a cold feeling to it, but that does add to the quality of the record, I would say. So it is very good, especially the till ends of the record are great. I would say Hidden Place and especially Unison. I think at some parts or at some moments of my life, I listened to that song. I had like a music video playing of like, don't quote me on that. I think, I mean, I don't even think they're from this artist, but the videography artist Michel Gondry, which is actually my actual name. I'm not sure if it's smart to say that, but yeah, I'm Michel, so there you go. But yeah, Michel Gondry is like a videography artist that makes like music videos for for famous bands. The only one that I know he did from the top of my head are Weezer, White Stripes, and Björk. He definitely did more than that, but those are just the ones that I can remember right now. So it might have been a video from him, or it's in that style, I would say. And it's just one of those songs where it elevates more and more into that emotional beauty, and it just kind of spurs out. It just comes out all in the end, and it's really like the first couple of times when I heard that song, I literally just shed a tear. Like it was just such a wonderful song to me. I couldn't really keep it together. So yeah, Björk definitely broke me down to that record. That's kind of why it's lower on the list, because it's really fucking difficult to throw on Björk, especially Vespertine, because I'm like, fuck. The way she sings that, the way she evokes that emotion, it's unreal. It's almost like she's an alien. Like some people believe, conspiracy theory, but yeah, she really does that to people. So that's why she has that reputation. Just simply stunning. Number 8 is the Yuki Kajira soundtrack, Hackdot soundtrack. Whereas Vespertine has like moments of greatness, I would say that this album is just consistently good, and that's why I like that's what I like about it. And it's kind of like a Celtic new age kind of vibe, a bit electronic because it is a TV soundtrack. Or la, is Hackdot a series? I don't even know. Poser moment, but I'm not huge on Hackdots, the anime, but I do love the soundtrack because Yuki Kajira is just a gem. She just makes these very elegant, like classically inspired anime theme songs. And Hackdot soundtrack is, I think, early on, it was one of her most famous compositions that later got eclipsed by, of course, Modica Magica, which, everyone loves. So that does overshadow this album, but nonetheless, this album is great. And I think that you definitely should scope this one out if you're into like anime soundtracks, because most of my fucking thumbnails are like weeby anime thumbnails. So you will definitely, click on a Hackdot soundtrack after this, after I'm done with this video, probably. Because you should know what my thumbnails should be at this point, but yeah, maybe the dedicated fans, if they're there. But more on this album. Yeah, it is just those Celtic elements that are just very pretty, and I just love the emotion and passion that Yuki Kajira has behind her piano. I think it's really pretty and elegant. It's kind of like the subtle quality that Julia Holtz has, with the more icy, wintry vibes that Björk has. So she kind of has the best of both worlds, I would say. So that's why it was number 8. Very pretty, very elegant, just very beautiful album in my opinion. So that makes me feel a certain way. I just really love Yuki Kajira. She gives me feels. What can I say? The woman gives me feels. Number 7. Speaking of woman, another woman. This will be the last one, I swear. Like 50-50 for this list. This is The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, which might be a surprise because I don't talk a lot about hip hop on this channel. But I do want to change that because I've talked about some DJ Shadow, but you can more so consider that electronic or like instrumental. So like as far as actual hip hop goes, I don't think that Lauryn Hill is necessarily a favorite of mine. But when I just listen to some of her songs, like X Factor is just beautiful to me. Forgive Her, I think, is another one, or Forgive Him, because it's from her perspective. Tell Him It's Gonna Be Alright. I think that was the closer song. I haven't heard this album in a while because it just makes me feel a certain way. It really sounds like you're in love with someone. It's like the love album, but it's also very catchy. Definitely the one song that's vicious as fuck is that's probably my favorite one, which is actually the non-love song, ironically enough, which is Lost Ones, which is just a Wyclef Jean diss track, which that's great, I think, because that's her ex, and that's her ex bandmate from the Fugees. If you didn't recognize that name, that is a ex band member from the Fugees, which was her previous band. Which I do like that band. I do like the score, but I definitely like the Miseducation a lot more because it just sounds a lot more complete and developed, I would say. That just sounds like the complete Lauryn Hill experience. And it's really difficult to explain these songs, but Lauryn Hill just has a certain quality in her voice, just her singing style, which is very elegant. It's very primal, it's powerful, but it's also very emotional. You can definitely hear that she's been through some shit. So I just love her kind of damaged sound that she has on this record. It sounds like she's damaged, but she's also just enjoying life, kind of the best of both worlds because she was dealing with a lot of tough love from her upbringing. And that's why she's so talented because, you know, her parents beat the shit out of her. Allegedly. I'm not sure if I can get sued for that, but yeah, there you go. But yeah, let's say that Lauryn Hill had a tough upbringing. It's hard to love this woman, but I definitely love this album. I've learned to not expect anything from her again because you will not get new Lauryn Hill material. You know, I think that's it's more possible that Maynard comes to my house and brings me one of his wines than that would happen. Then we would get a new Lauryn Hill album. Just not possible, but this album is certainly glorious, and I would definitely recommend you listen to it because it is one of a kind. Number 6, which I have kind of mentioned beforehand, which is or kind of referenced before. Still Alive by Opeth. There doesn't come one video where I don't mention Opeth, so yeah, this was the moment. You could argue that Damnation has the more emotional moments, but I think that Still Alive has a more complete kind of vibe to it, kind of more of a complete sound. Because you have these like really like moody and destructive sounding songs like The More and Godhead's Lament, which I would say are the two best songs on this album. But they also have these also really bluesy and kind of moody songs like Benighted and especially Face of Melinda, which I think, it sounds bluesy but jazzy, like just moody jazz rock. And it's also like heavy as balls. And I don't think that Michael just doesn't scream on the song. He's always very soothful and emotional on the song. And I do think that is a very great quality of Opeth that they can, especially like they can scream in your nightmares, but they can also just sing you to sleep. They're kind of one of those lullaby bands. Like they can scare you to death, but they can also sing you to sleep. One of those bands that have both of those qualities. And on this record, you get both, which I think is just a great mixture. You get those emotional songs, you get the heavy hitting songs, so it's just a perfect mixture of both. And they are always like passionately sung and always emotional with pretty much every song on this record. So I think that is great for that reason. Hence why it's on the list. Number 5, which I did actually I actually misspoke earlier, and I mentioned this band, but here they actually are. Carnivus by Silver Sun Pickups. What makes it such a good album to me is that it is a bit dreamy, it's a bit atmospheric. I do really like this album a lot because it just has a lot of catchy elements, but it is also very emotional and moody. So it has, like Opeth, like the best of both worlds, I would say. But with Opeth, you do have to be into the screamy vocals. And with Silver Sun Pickups, you can just enjoy this sound, I would say. Unless you can't handle noise music, then maybe don't listen to this. But, it would be difficult to recommend any album on there. Maybe the Lauryn Hill album, maybe the Depeche Mode, But besides that, it would be difficult. It would be kind of difficult. So, yeah, what makes this good to me is that there are a lot of moments where it's just like noise and fuzz. But there are also these moments where they're like singing in harmony, they're really like gearing up their guitars, and they're just blasting it out. And that's just what I really like about the mood, the emotion, just the harmonies, like I said. Like especially with Lazy Eye, when they don't necessarily sing emotional like I've mentioned in the previous picks. But this is actually, I would argue, the first band that plays their instruments. And that's the reason why I get an emotional reaction out of that. Because when the riffs gear up and it really speeds up towards Lazy Eye or the whole Common Reactor song, which, lesser example because I do get emotional from the vocals. But let's say Lazy Eye, there are almost no vocals on that. But the last like shreddy part is just so hard gripping and so high on impact that because of those sounds, I get emotional from that. I'm like, fuck, how is he playing like that? Like, you know, it's a fairly easy chord structure because he's just riffing on it. He's just strumming it into the stratosphere. So it's not difficult, but I'm like, how does he have that tone? How does this make me tear up? I'm like, he's just playing one riff. How am I getting emotional from that? But like, I love this song because I can't explain why it makes me feel like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like that Lazy Eye riff. Like, especially in the bridge when it gets like really psychedelic and like shreddy. And when it gets really high in pitch and in shred level, it's really difficult to like not have an emotional reaction to that. If you don't feel anything to that riff, I'm like, are you alive? Are you human? you know? That's insane. Like, I can't explain that sound. You just have to listen to that. So, that's probably the best thing I could say about the song. Like, it has a lot of those moments where I'm like, it has these riffs, it has these, like, these catapult moments where I'm like, fuck, that's a great riff. And you're just in awe by just how gorgeous it sounds. And that makes me emotional. I don't know why. It just makes me feel a certain way. You don't even have to have lyrics, and it makes me feel that particular mood. Like I can't explain it. That's why Carnivus is a masterpiece because I can't explain why it's great. Just listen to it. It's art. The art speaks for itself. So there you go. Number 4 Which, yeah, this is a really difficult one to not shed a tear, which is Age of Odds by Sufjan Stevens. This is a really difficult one because the lyrics are really personal and close to Sufjan. And that is usually how he is because he is he's a very direct and personal kind of singer-songwriter because he really like writes from the heart. And it's like reason to him. It's like things what happened to him, and he writes that in his music. Like, oh, uh, what could have been. He's basically that artist. Like, oh, what if this happened, or if things were a certain way, we could be together. He is that kind of artist, and I'm usually not really into, like, I would almost call it desperate, but I believe his desperation because I just really vibe with his songwriting, and just the way he composes it is just it's just on another level. Because when most guys sing like, "Oh, I want my girl back. Oh, I want this, I want that," when they get really desperate for it, I'm like, maybe get a hobby, dude. I'm like, it's not that big a deal, but Sufjan makes it a big deal, and I'm like, yeah, I like this dude. I like his singing style. I like his composition, and I just really like the vibe that he provides with this record, especially um the final moments of Impossible Soul, when like that whole dense atmosphere is like lost, and then at the ending, he has that really like lo-fi strum guitar, and he's like, "I'm as light as a feather." And I think like he almost sing cries, "We could have been together." When he does that, I'm like, fuck, man. Like, I feel for you, man. I fucking feel for you, because I'm like, I can understand how he feels, because I'm like, yeah, he definitely sung that about like a spouse, or like maybe an ex, or like maybe a person that he lost, like a very endearing, close person to him. And like, I can fucking feel his heart with that song. Like, it's like my fucking heart goes out to him, because just the way he sings it, and after you've been through that entire 15-minute journey of Impossible Soul, and then he drops that, I'm like, like, you've already been through the fucking ringer with Sufjan, and then he drops that emotional bomb on you, and you're just dead. You're just fucking dead. I'm like, wow. Just a masterpiece, just stunning. If you don't have a reaction to that, like, maybe check your pulse, mate. Something is wrong, because that song is just magic to me. Just absolute magic. Number 3, which is Razorblade Romance by him, which I still want to get the vinyl by, because him is great. I think that him is one of the most consistent, quality, emotional bands out there. You could call them an emo band. Doesn't look like I give a shit. I don't fucking care, mate. Like, because him is just one of the most consistently fun bands to listen to. Because him has this quality where they're catchy, they're fun, they're moody, they're emotional, they're very lyrical, I would say, lyrical in their approach to songwriting. But to me, it doesn't come over hokey, corny, or cheesy, or something like him haters would say. But Razorblade Romance just has this very like eclectic kind of special atmosphere to it, because it sounds like like kind of like a goth guy made it in his basement, and he somehow made it, high production. It sounds high fidelity to me, like high art. Like, this kind of sounds like, might be an insult to this band, but like a modern Cure almost, with a bit more of a like a pop metal flair. That's how this album sounds to me. And Disintegration was close to making this list. I was thinking about it, but I was like, yeah, Robert Smith, not my favorite singer. Let's just say I don't really get a reaction from him personally. I'm not saying he's shit. I do really like The Cure, but I don't personally resonate a lot with The Cure. But him is different because I just listened to this and I was like, you know, Join Me in Death. I've sang that song like 1,000 times. Just special. It's emotional yet catchy. You have what else? Where they're like jamming out in the studio. The music video. Right Here in My Arms, which is also catchy yet emotional. You have Sweet 666, I believe, something like that. Poison Hearts, I believe, is another one. The closing song of the version that I have, at least I think the European version. Like I'm really struggling with these titles. Like when I have them in my head, I can sing them better. How do I not remember this? That's annoying. Heaven Tonight. Da-da, you're my heaven tonight. I'm not Vil Vallo, I know, but fuck. If only, right? That dude is a stud. But yeah, just the eclectic quality of him, Vil Vallo's voice. I mean, just that dude is just fucking gorgeous. Like I'm more so into girls, but Vil Valor just makes me gay. That dude is just a fucking stud. I don't care what anyone says. Like, usually people say to him fans, don't fall for them. They're just pretending. I fell for him, like figuratively and literally. I fell for him. Yeah, there you go. Should I say more? Because that's like the most emotional thing I could say about a band. I fell for them, so that's great. I'm fucking tired, so I'm gonna round this out. Number two, which was actually a last minute addition to this list because I forgot that I was into this band at one point. I haven't listened to them a lot recently, but yeah, like yesterday, I checked out some older songs from them again from this particular album, and I was like, wow, like this band has a very unique and kind of isolated feeling with me at least, which is very different from other artists that I've tried in a more metallic route, I would say. The band I'm talking about is Anathema, and I think that Anathema is known for like the most moody and atmospheric band in indie metal sphere. Like Anathema is usually associated with mood, atmosphere, like doom, swaits. But yeah, Anathema is special because they've like more so recently they've kind of swayed more into a pop rock direction, which I actually think really works for them, especially with their album Weather Systems, which is actually my second favorite mood album because you have these songs called Untouchable, which are just great center or like great duo pieces to the pie. And I'm just like, this is just amazing, like stunning. It's really one of those unexplainable songs where I kind of forgot the names of the people in this band, but you have these like male and female singers, like kind of a Fleetwood Mac syndrome, kind of saying back and forth with each other, like I feel you, and you're at the edge of my hand, I believe. I'm not the best with lyrics, but just when you hear it, you're just like, it really feels like you belong to one another. It's really one of those like perfect pop songs, I would say, which is kind of weird to think about because most people would say that Anathema is a metal band, but this is really a pop song, like the Untouchable songs, which is just the beginning of the album. I would have preferred personally if part one started out the album and if part two was the closer. Because if part two was the closer, I think that Weather Systems would have been like easily the best on the team album. It might still be, but part two playing immediately after part one, like that song is perfect. I'm like, that's the most emotional climactic song ever. So I'm like, how do you continue after that? You don't. And there are like 6 other songs after that. So I'm like, yeah, that should have been the closer in my opinion, but that didn't happen. But despite, the inconsistent track listing, Untouchable Part 2 is one of those songs where I have a really hard time to lay my finger on what moment is great because the whole thing is just like when I hear that song, when I hear the opening piano notes on that song, I'm just stunned. Like I'm paralyzed in my tracks, and I'm like, fuck, I have to listen to this because I hadn't heard the song in a while, and like those first couple of piano notes were hitting, and the male singer I think started out, and then the female vocals came in, and whoever she is, I think she was like a background member before this album, and after this album, I believe, she became more of a prominent member as far as the vocals are concerned. And she has like a beautiful voice. I think she sings like an angel. She's definitely up there with Beth Gibbons as like my favorite singer in this style, I would say. So yeah, just gorgeous vocals. Like she she actually just sounds like an angel, I would say, and that adds to the mood of this record. And I just really like the back and forth between this guy and this girl because it sounds like a couple going through a divorce and they're trying to find a way to make it work, but it's just crumbling apart. It's just really sad to hear. That's how it sounds to me. I'm not saying that that's a subject. I'm just saying that's how it sounds to me. And these constant piano notes are playing through it, and slowly, like the band is backing them up more and more and more, and then this whole symphony breaks out, and like there are these orchestral guitars like actually soloing over that, and it has these really fucking climactic notes at the end, and then it feels like you stepped through the light, like you stepped through heaven or something, like an actual heavenly sound. That's how it sounds. You would think, how can anything top that if you have that description, like actual heaven? That's how it sounds to me. But like I said, that's part two, and part two is definitely one of the most emotional and just gripping songs I've ever heard in my life. Like I don't think I've had a more emotional reaction to any song ever than to that song. Untouchable Part Two, just a masterpiece. Like I find it difficult to listen to that song because of the amount of passion and soul that is in that song. Like, how can you top that? Yeah, the only reason that this is not number one is because, like I said, the Untouchable songs are fucking great. Like those are masterpieces. But the album continues after part two, and I'm like, no, part two is like the greatest sound ever. So how can you ever top that? It's not the closer. That's the only issue with this album. It's not the closer. I do like the other songs after it as well, but they're less memorable to me. I'm really fond of those Untouchable songs. But yeah, I think that's the common opinion here. Those first two songs are amazing. The rest of the album still pretty good, but yeah, they definitely kind of front loaded their album, and then they play the other songs, and that's still great. That's still fucking great material. Anathema's a great band, but yeah, they definitely blew their load at the beginning. Untouchable is untouchable, like pretty accurate advertising there. Pretty untouchable songs, but there's one album where I'm like, fuck, this whole thing makes me emotional. It's catchy. The vocals are great. Lyrical content is great because it actually makes me think. It actually stops me in my track and it actually makes me reconsider some things. I'm like, oh, an album never does that to me. What album does that? Six by Manson. My favorite emotional album ever. Because like I said, the musicianship is perfect. The vocals are perfect to me. I think they're perfect vocals. The lyrical content is actually thought provoking, deep, complex. Yeah, just intelligent and just it makes you stop. It makes you stop and think. And lyrics never do that with me. I usually never care for lyrics, but this album makes me care for the lyrics. And what makes it such a great album is mainly that it is diverse, it is complex, it is dense, it is long, sprawling, it's epic. But there are just these moments where they're just, jamming out as a band, but then they're also just, expressing their feelings and they're jamming out, they're soloing. And this dude's just wailing on the guitars, and those fucking layers go over and over and over that. And I'm like, how the fuck do you do that? That's insane. It's like Radiohead, but good. And the vocals don't suck, so it's great. And like um this is the Radiohead that should have been as big as that band, in my opinion. I think that this album smokes their career, in my opinion. Because if you actually go to the radio music charts, it has like 8 different genres: prog rock, alt rock, art rock, Britpop. It's my favorite Britpop band, by the way. If you can consider them Britpop, Manson is my favorite. Experimental rock and space rock revival. So like 6, 7 different genres. I'm counting 6 here. But yeah, title track, great catchy way to start off the record, and it is complex. Cancer, which is just fuck. I'm not sure if that was. I'm not sure if it's Cancer, but like one of these lyrics or one of these songs had like a really like poignant song, like a really poignant lyric to like your day to day life and how you would date someone and how I think it was Legacy. In Legacy, like their biggest hit, they were like, "Oh, you can date someone, but it doesn't matter because you're gonna fucking die. Relationships are useless." I'm like, "Fuck, that's such a bop." But he's saying like everything is meaningless. You're gonna fucking die, and the relationship that you're in is useless. So what are you doing? Why are you doing that? It's useless what you're doing. You're gonna fucking die. And I'm like, fuck. He's so right, but I can't help it. I'm like, it's emotional, it's accurate, it's hitting points, it's poignant, but it also makes me feel a certain way. I'm like, fuck. That's so great. That's so fucking great. Um Actually kind of an admission for me. The closing song also makes me feel a certain way because I think that the band. I'm not sure if they've confirmed this or not, but the song "Being a Girl," the closing song, is like Um, that's kind of sometimes how I feel because I'm like, yeah, I'm born AMAP, assigned male at birth. It's not that special. But sometimes I feel like being a girl. I'm like, yeah, I have these feminine traits. I'm not trying to be sexist or something, but I can be long-winded and I do like to do my hair and shit like that, which can also be considered manly, of course. But I think that those are mostly like female traits or like more popular with the female race. I kind of sound like a fucking alien, but yeah. Sometimes I just feel pretty, and I'm like, yeah, I think that that's a more feminine touch, and because of that reason, that's also just a song that resonates with me. That's not necessarily what the band is saying, like that's not the reason or that's the point of the song, but that's just how I feel. And you know, them naming it being a girl, I'm like, oh man, I just resonate with that. I don't know. Like sometimes I feel like that, sometimes I just feel non-binary, sometimes I just feel envy. I have all these feelings on my head. I'm so conflicted. And Manson is just saying at the closing song of this masterpiece of an album, they're saying like, being a girl, what if it's fine, that's just how those are not the lyrics necessarily. That's just how I interpreted it, and that just makes me feel a way. I'm like, fuck, this band gets me, even if it's not about that. I'm still like, yeah, I just get this fucking song. I would get it at least. I've added it. However you want to interpret that, the soloing to television and just the way how he kind of passionately yells over that. I'm like, oh my god, it's just like an eargasm. Like it's emotional, it's gripping, it's dense. I'm like, all these emotions, man. And this almost like over 70 minutes long, and I can just enjoy every second of it. Cancer as well, like I said, just heart gripping. I feel like this one, I'm just getting emotional thinking about it. Manson. I think this was also one of the ones where I was just like, fuck these lyrics. Oh, yeah, it kind of starts out drastically. I'm emotionally R-worded by Jesus. I cannot say that on YouTube. What now of my fate? Just a desperate exercise to limit pain. I am weak. I am emotional and sensitive and frail, in need of some love. So, yeah, just dying of cancer, but just desperate, crawling to love. If that isn't an emotional war cry of an anthem, then I don't know what is. Hold your people in disdain and steal their grace. Keep turning my cheek. I'm emotional and sensitive and weak. Uninformed, you have harbored those who nurtured Europe's war. Yeah, I mean, this whole album is just filled with gems like that. I think the one lyric that I really wanted to quote was "Legacy" because he was saying it in the chorus like nothing matters, mate. You're gonna fucking die. I just really like that. Yeah. I forgot one line. Let's see. I've been drained. Emotion is a bitter thing. Won't be here, so I don't care. I concede relationships have felt me weak, have left me weak. Won't be here, so I don't care. Look for something worthy to replace my guilt. Won't be here, so I don't care. Prove my worth to people who I call my friends. Won't be here, so I don't care. Like on a friendship level, emotional relationships, so like every perspective that you have of this song is just, man, it fucking grips you. Life is wearing me thin. I feel so drained. My legacy, a sea of faces just like me. And life is wearing me thin. I feel so drained. My legacy, a sea of faces just like me. Nobody cares when you're gone. That's the bridge after the chorus. Nobody cares when you're gone. I'm like, fuck, and then that's the outro as well. Nobody cares when you're gone. Um, let's see. I wouldn't care if I was washed up tomorrow. You see, reading novels is banned by the Marcus de Sade. All relationships are emptying and temporary, meaning they're useless. Nobody cares when you're gone. And the ad lib is no. Yeah, I mean, just this band. I have feelings for this band. If I could be in a relationship with a band, it would be Manson with this album. It's just fucking magic. So it's just very difficult to explain because it is catchy, it is instrumental, it is progressive, yet it is emotional. I'm not sure if I said it already, but it is emotional, yet catchy and complex. I'm like, it's all the things that I want in music. Manson 6. So I hope that was a accurate description of how these albums make me feel. If not, then feel free to elaborate on something that you would like to add to these albums. Are there any albums that make you feel a certain way? These are at least my personal favorites. Emotional albums, my favorite mood albums. Let's just say, because emo albums that probably would guide you in the wrong direction. You would get the wrong impression. So these are my favorite emotional records. Yeah, just a personal pick. Like I said, just a personal preference. Preference. If you have any of these top tens or like any favors that you would like to add, feel free to add them in the description. Feel free to leave them in the comments down below. You can't add the description. You can only leave a comment. There you go. Yeah, I'm very fucking tired, if you can tell, so I'm gonna quit here. I have to be up in like 6 hours, so I will rest for now. I will enjoy some Julia Holter. Enjoy it as well. Love City song. Great album. And I will see you in the next video. Feel free to leave a suggestion, what you would like to see, another like listicle review. Let me know and I will check it out. And I would also recommend checking these albums out if you're in a certain mood, then definitely check it out. I would highly recommend it. Take care.